Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Riverhead's January 26, 2020 business meeting. Can we please rise for the pledge? And we're also going to have a moment of silence for our student that was lost yesterday. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, next we have opportunity for the high school student representatives. I know, I just noticed that. Just hold off 1 second. Can I return to open session? Could I have a motion? Thank you. Can I have a second? Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry now.
Good evening. My name is Angela Squashambo. I'm a student representative. Tonight, I just wanted to talk about a few exciting things that are coming up this February. As of right now, the student government, along with class officers and advisors, are starting to prepare for our second Spirit Week. This is scheduled to happen sometime before February break. Everyone is excited to see the hallway decorations, and hopefully we'll see more participation since we've gone down to 2 cohorts. The National Honor Society is also planning a small but welcoming induction ceremony for our new members on Wednesday, February 10th. The ceremony will be only for the seniors in order to recognize their achievements, and it will be recorded and uploaded to our Riverhead website. We also hope that by spring we'll be able to have a normal ceremony for our juniors. And then for the Riverhead High School CAP Peer Leadership Program, we have been seeing some positive feedback coming from our Pulaski students. Many of the high school peer leaders have been devoting their time for recording of lessons, and thankfully the teachers of these Pulaski students have been giving some of their lesson time so that kids could view this. It's been a hard time these couple of past months, but we have seen that students have become more united as we've gone down to the 2 cohorts, and we're excited to see what happens from here on out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Amani Thomas. Last month, Mr. O'Hara asked me to attend a conference called the Long Island Leaders of Tomorrow, which is associated with the Organization of Erased Racism. During this conference, I was able to discuss topics surrounded by structural, interpersonal, institutional, internalized, individual, and systemic racism. Students from schools all over Long Island were confessing that their schools deal with racism every day, how it impacts their learning, how many of their teachers do not handle situations surrounded by racism well, and no justice has been done to combat the situations that they were facing. I was honored to be able to share how our school district has been inclusive and welcoming of all backgrounds and cultures. We have an incredible faculty, and how if situations arise around anything around racism or injustice, our school makes it the main priority in resolving the situation immediately. I was also able to share how we have clubs such as Hispanic Youth Leadership, the GSA, ENL Support, African American Culture Club, and an African American History and Literature Club. Out of everything, they were surprised to hear how our school does plays for Black History Month, and how we have a class surrounded around learning about history and accomplishments of African Americans. To end the inclusive and welcoming environment in this district that I was able to share with other students, they are now trying to implicate some way to their school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Any public comments on the agenda items, Ms. Lisa? None? Superintendent's report, Ms. Toner, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Downs. Good evening, everyone. It's the time of the month that I'm sharing residency and enrollment update. No new residency cases since our last report on December 8th. District enrollment is up by 4 students. Charter school enrollment is down 3 students. Homeschooling is down by 1 student, and private and parochial school enrollment is up by 6 students. I'd like to congratulate Ms. Tijuana Fulford and the Butterfly Effect Project. They were recognized, she was recognized at the Martin Luther King breakfast by the First Baptist Church last week. I had the honor of attending virtually along with Lori Downs and Sam Schneider and E&L Director Liz Scaduto. So congratulations to Tia. She does so much for the students in our school district. We're grateful for all of her efforts and support for our students. Tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. on Zoom is our second Community Diversity and Cross-Cultural Task Force meeting. Information is on the website on how to log in, and everyone is welcome. So a survey went out today to families of students in grades 7 through 12. It's to gauge interest and just collect data as to if we had 3 options for attendance, what would families prefer? Currently, we have a hybrid model where the students attend in person 2 days a week, or full remote where they do not attend in person at all. We've been providing live synchronous instruction since January 11th, which is going well, with the exception of a couple of glitches at the middle school that I'll speak of in a second. So that survey went out. We're asking families to respond if they had the option to choose. Would they prefer 4 days of in-person instruction, 2 days of in-person instruction, or full remote instruction? We're looking at gathering that information, sharing the information with the Board of Education, and seeing where to proceed, if we will proceed in any changes. Nothing has been determined. Should the decision to purchase barriers be made, which would allow us to have more students in person, less than 6 feet apart, my recommendation at this point in time would allow families to choose from any of the 3 options. Live stream would be happening. We have to continue, my recommendation is to continue with the Wednesday as a non-instructional day in person, because the teachers on the secondary level have the full remote students on their rosters, and that day gives them the opportunity to make additional contact with the full remote students. It's been such a difficult year. The live streaming that I've seen in person and the reports I'm getting, the teachers feel that they're able to make stronger connections with the students despite the challenging school year that we have currently. So that's the update on the survey. We encourage families to respond to it by next Monday, February 1st at 4 p.m., and then we'll be gathering data, but no decisions have been made on how to proceed at this time. Middle school has had some struggles with some unwanted and inappropriate videos that have been, someone is logging into some classes and the police are involved. It's an active police investigation, and all of the middle school students are having their passwords set. So on Thursday, when the cohort 2 returns and the students in cohort 1 are home live streaming, they'll have to reset their passwords. And that's all I can share right now, but I'm hopeful that we'll have an end to this very soon. And I apologize to all for this situation, because truly it's not something any of us want to happen, and it is completely inappropriate. Sports update. You may have heard that the governor last week said that high-risk sports will be allowed to play. And yesterday, the county executive, Steve Ballone, had a press conference, and the governor gave the decision-making power to the counties. So he has said that this can happen as long as the athletes have weekly COVID tests done. Now, the specific on what that will look like has not been released yet, because the county is working on that. So the fact that this applies in Suffolk County to winter, which is currently in process, fall and spring. For us in Riverhead, because we're on the contingent budget, it will apply to our spring sports season. So it looks like lacrosse, boys lacrosse is considered the high-risk sport in the spring, and so those athletes, in order to participate, will need to take weekly COVID tests. And that's my update, other than we have 3 presentations this evening. So the first is the transportation presentation. So I'm going to turn this over to Sam Schneider and our co-directors of transportation, Mr. Leslie Moore and Ms. Colette Furcht.
Okay, so while Mr. Hines gets the presentation ready for you to be able to follow along on the screen and for those who are listening elsewhere to be able to follow along on their screens. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present this evening. With me at the podium are Leslie Moore, Sr., and Colette Furch, the co-directors of Transportation. We have a lot of material to go through, and hopefully we'll be able to address all the concerns and questions, and we can always provide supplemental information at the end. So, Riverhead Central School District owns and operates its own transportation department. It employs 145 people. In fact, most of them live in the district. 108 out of the 145 are district residents. The transportation department is responsible this year for moving just shy of 5,000 students to our 7 public schools and a number of private, parochial, and special education placements. Last year, we transported 5,500 students. We have the drop-off this year because of the number of students who are on virtual instruction. We contract with BOCES to transport students to certain locations that we cannot service for a variety of reasons, service efficiently, and we can talk further about that a little bit later on. As part of the presentation, we were asked to take a look at the cost per pupil of running the transportation department. And I want to say, with a word of caution on these numbers, it's very difficult to create meaningful numbers when comparing district to district because different districts have different rules on transportation. Some districts provide transportation for every student regardless of where they live. Some districts have what I would call a transportation culture, whereby students are picked up at their houses, whereas other districts have transportation culture where students are picked up at corners. Some districts are geographically very small, but as best as possible, we did a comparison here of some like districts, particularly the ones that are of similar size to us. You can see pleasantly that Riverhead is in the middle, at the bottom of the middle, in terms of cost per pupil. All right, and now, Mr. Moore.
Again, good evening, everyone. My name is Leslie Moore, one of the co-directors of transportation. Again, good evening. On transportation boundaries, New York State law requires that elementary school students be transported if they live more than 2 miles from the school. Secondary students as well, it's 3 miles. The Board of Directors and the voters have approved the following guidelines: from 1 to 4, half mile; from 5 to 6, an eighth of a mile; and getting grade 7 to 12, 1.2 miles. The only way these limits can be changed is by voter approval.
So how do we transport all the students within the Riverhead district? Currently, we have 121 vehicles. We have 82 full-size vehicles, one which is a wheelchair-accessible vehicle, as well as 2 coach-style seating vehicles. We have 39 vans. 10 of them are wheelchair-accessible vans. Our vans, we are trying to utilize as a regular bus and take the stigma off of what a van has always been in the past. So a lot of our vans have regular ed as well as special ed students on the vehicles. We have 10% of our fleet needs to be left for emergency purposes, or when we have vehicles that are down, there needs to be extra vehicles, and that's an industry standard to have the 10% of spare vehicles. Also, next slide. How do all these routes get out to our drivers? Over the summertime, the transportation department, we place schools together that make sense and that work together. Then, as per the CSE contract, we have what's called a route pick. That is also an industry standard on how drivers and monitors pick their work. So our drivers and monitors have 5 days to come in and look at the routes that we put together. We have drivers that want nothing but an 8-hour route. We also have drivers that want smaller routes. I just had a driver come in and said, I can't do any really extra work, my Social Security is going to be withholding 2 months of pay from me because I'm making too much. So we try and make a wide variety of different routes to accommodate every person that comes in looking for a school bus driving job. School bus drivers are very hard to come by throughout New York State. They're not knocking down our door. So we put the routes together, they come in, they look at it, and then they come in a seniority-based order, and they pick the route that they would like to have for the year. And we wish they'd keep it for a year, but things change throughout the course of the year. We may have an added route, we may have a driver that leaves, so we would need to repost the route, and our drivers would then have the opportunity to bid on that route and change off of the route. So I know I send board sheets to have drivers' hours go up and down, and that's how that happens, because we have routes that drop off. We may have one student that goes to a particular school. If that child doesn't go to that school anymore, then the whole route would change. As far as monitors, sometimes we have a child that's required to have a monitor on board, and then that child moves to a different bus, and then we don't need a monitor on that particular bus. So things can change throughout the year, and that's how we go about assigning the work to the drivers and monitors.
Next slide contains our bus fleet. I just want to go over a little bit about our bus fleet. So I'll start with the large buses. We have currently around 82 large buses. The district has decided that we will go mostly green, so a lot of our 50% of our large buses are propane. We have also gasoline and also diesel large buses. As far as our vans, we only contain diesel vans and gasoline vans. Going green, we're very happy to say, again, that we've reached that 50% mark. We will continue to purchase both propane buses during the next 3 years of our contract that we have in place. What's the big difference between our propane buses and our diesel buses? As you can see under the vans, we have 5 diesel buses. Those buses are older van buses that are diesel. They're less friendly to the environment, so recycling those vans, purchasing new vans, which are more economical and more efficient to the, and more efficient is what we strive to do. Propane buses, again, we'll get into some of the fuel in a later slide, but our propane buses burn more efficient, they're less maintenance. When we do oil changes on our propane buses, most of the oil is, it looks like it's never been touched. It's just the way it burns. It just burns so much cleaner. We purchase all of our vehicles off the state contract, and we keep strict inventory of our buses. We just want to talk a little bit about the mechanicals of the propane buses versus the diesel buses. Again, you'll see as we go into the purchasing, diesel buses are newer, so they are more efficient, but they still are not as good as the propane buses when it comes to the environment. The next bus fleet will show you our purchasing and how our buses go from the year 2001 to 2022. Now, you also see in there we have a couple of gaps, like you'll see from 2015, we purchased no buses. 2016, take my glasses for a second. 2016, we purchased 8 large and 13 vans. It's very hard to say, well, when do you decide to recycle your buses or when you decide to purchase new buses? All of our buses are DOT, so it could be buses on Sound Avenue that travel during the wintertime. They're more accessible to salt. So those buses will come out of service a lot faster. DOT may come to our site and say, this particular bus, we have to take it out of service because of its age and because of its condition. The next slide we'll go into is the 5-year bus purchase plan. Again, we purchase all of our buses off the state contract. Just want to say, look, the company that we use, Bird Bus, they were able to hold their prices for the remainder of the contract. which is not easy, especially in this industry. I don't know anywhere where you can go and you can purchase something, then 5 years later, it is exactly the same price. They held their contract. It was part of the negotiating between the Board of Ed and the voters, and again, it is an excellent plan. We are 2 years into our plan now. We purchased 9 buses, you'll see on the slide, and we just got our new buses. Very beautiful buses. If you get a chance, please take a look. Next slide, bus fleet. The next slide on the bus fleet talks in comparison to some of our fuel expenses. Pretty much the biggest difference in 2018 and 2019 is, again, we were running full. Between 2019 and 2020, of course, because of the pandemic, you will see those numbers are lessened. Just to give an example, we traveled over 1,588 miles in 2018, 2019, versus 2019, 2020, a little over less than 1.5 million. The main reason, again, is because of the pandemic. The pandemic has definitely been an impact on our industry, and it continues to be. Our fuel costs, just to give you a little idea, again, we purchase all our fuel off the state contract. And the propane is $220,493 in 2018, 2019. In 2019, 2020, you will see in the propane that we purchased, our total expense was $143,000. And the price per gallon averaged about $1.51.
So, how do we get up to 1.5 million miles a year that we travel? Those drivers are out there driving, aren't they? We have 7 Riverhead schools that we service every day. We have 144 routes that go to those 7 buildings, as well as 141 routes for the afternoon. Why are those numbers a little different? We have the pre-K program through Scope that we transport to Phillips Avenue. The AM students ride in on the regular morning buses. Then we have a midday shuttle that goes, picks those students up and takes them home. We also have students that are picked up to be brought in for the pre-K afternoon session, and those students then will ride home on the afternoon large buses. Riverhead is geographically the largest district downstate. We have neighboring districts that some people may think are big districts. Sachem, it's 24 square miles. Longwood, it's 53 square miles. Riverhead is shy of 100. We're 85 square miles. One other thing I just want to talk about when I'm talking about the geography of the district, if you see, we have our Riverhead Middle School and Pulaski Street. In the afternoons, they don't ride on the same vehicles. What we were discovering is in the afternoons, a lot of our vehicles were not making it to their next school, which is an elementary building, because it was just too big of an area that needed to be covered with those routes. So splitting the PM portion to have middle school just take middle school and Pulaski just do Pulaski seems to work out much better in the end for our vehicles getting to their elementary schools on time. Within that 1.5 million, we also traveled to special education and occupational education schools. We currently go to 8 different buildings. We have 23 buses for their morning routes and 26 for their afternoon routes. We have 3 of these buildings that we travel to are also included within our shared services, which it's something new that we started here in Riverhead, and with the support of the board, we thank you for your encouragement in helping us make this work. And it truly does. Thank you. Also within that 1.5 million miles, we travel to 7 non-public as well as the charter schools. We have 21 buses for the AM and 22 for the PM routes. All of these schools are within our shared service programs. You might say, a lot of these schools is outside of the Riverhead boundaries. Why are we going to them? New York State dictates that every child is entitled to go to a school of their choice. And along with that, they are entitled to transportation if it is within 15 miles from their front door to the school building. So, Our Lady of the Hamptons, Our Lady Queen of Apostles, those schools are further, but a child that lives within 15 miles of that school is entitled to have bus service. And the way it works with the shared service, we'll have a student that lives in Wading River that goes to Our Lady Queen of Apostles. We pick up that child first, then as we're heading into the school, we'll pick up the students that are outside of our district that is going to Our Lady Queen of Apostles as well.
Okay, so for the shared services contract, and just to follow up on the point you made there, for a school that would be within our district, like the Conic Community School, we would pick up the students in, let's say, the Mattatuck School District, then pick up our students, then head to the school. You can see the contracts the Board of Education has approved for this year's shared services. All told, it brings in $266,000 and change to the district. Now, the way we calculate these rates is we look at the extra time that we need to service the students who are outside of our district. We know what it costs us per hour to operate the bus, so we add that time on, we multiply it by the rate it costs us to operate the bus, and then we add money on top of that for increased costs and time for us, so that we end up, on a cost basis, end up benefiting from the agreement. Now, you can see, for example, if you look at, I'll take, for example, the contract for Our Lady Queen of the Apostles. The $48,000 that we're bringing in from that route is more than going to cover the cost for the entire year of employing the drivers to serve that route. And by partnering up with other districts are happy because we're able to offer the service at a much cheaper rate than what they're paying private carriers. And we're happy because they're helping to cover, or in some cases entirely cover, partially cover, or entirely cover our costs in running the route. We would still have to run the route anyway, even if we didn't have these shared services contracts. But this is a way of bringing some extra revenue for the district. We also have shared services contracts with several districts you can see on the screen, or other municipalities for fueling and for maintenance and operations. Our mechanics work on some of their vehicles as well.
Maintenance operations. The Riverhead Central School District, just to give you a little history of what we do, Department of Transportation, they come to our facility and they inspect our vehicles. School buses must be inspected every 6 months. So to keep everything into rotation, DOT comes to our site and they do our annual inspection. It's a little bit different than what you would do if you took your normal vehicle. Because it covers students, there are a lot of state and federal guidelines that we must adhere to. I'm happy to say that our mechanics and the staff that we have, we're able to achieve the rank of 99.2% approval rate. That means that 99% of our vehicles fail, and if we do have any questions, it's something that could be remedied right there while DOT is on site. That is an outstanding accomplishment for the transportation team. To help us reach that 99.2% passing rate, a lot of things come into play. We have 4 mechanics. Some of their things that they do during the day, they'll bring the buses in for DOT. They'll make sure that the vehicles are safe in order for our drivers and monitors to do their jobs correctly and safely, which is our most important goal. We have 6 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees in the office. Our department opens up anywhere from 5:15, and we can go as late as 7 o'clock. We have programs that are out as late as 7 o'clock. A day like tomorrow, not knowing with inclement weather, our guys have already have our trucks ready to be sanded, because at 5:15, our department needs to be ready to do what we have to do to get the job done, to get the students transported safely.
So, the next screen is BOCES transportation. We utilize BOCES transportation when we do not have the drivers that is needed to run these routes. It's not something that we look to do, it's a need, it's not a want. When we're in the position of hiring more drivers, last board meeting we hired 3 drivers, puts us in a position to pull routes back from BOCES, which we are very proud to say that in January to date, we have saved $37,986 per month by pulling routes back from BOCES. Pricing can vary with routes that are placed at BOCES, some running as expensive as $11,000 per month. So it's something that we would love to pull back. We have to consider, we have 1 driver. We have 3 schools in Riverhead that 1 driver can cover every morning. Or take that 1 driver and assign them to 1 school going out to Comac for 1 student. We're in a position that we have to decide what is the smarter move for the district, either covering 3 schools with potentially 120 students, or transporting 1 student to a school out in Comac. That driver would never be back in time to cover another route. So sometimes we do have to give them to BOCES, but we are constantly working on trying to pull things back so it can be done in-house. "33 years ago, I never thought I'd be standing in front of the Board of Education giving a presentation on a transportation department. 33 years ago, I walked into a school bus company not knowing the first thing about school bus driving. We want to afford that possibility of a career path to anyone that is interested in coming into our department and learning about the industry, getting their license. We have an outstanding training team. The last 9 people that we brought down to the Department of Motor Vehicle road test, we had 8 pass out of the 9. The 1 driver didn't pass. Underneath our hoods, when you purchase a bus, when they torque the nuts, they mark them. The DOT inspector said, you can't have that. So unfortunately, our driver had to leave and reschedule it. But we have an outstanding pass rate. We're proud of that. We walk down to that DMV site, they know the Riverhead buses now.
Where when Mr. Moore and myself first took over, that wasn't the case. So we pride ourselves on having people walk through the door with a Class D license, and within 2 months, they're sitting behind the wheel of a bus. There's no better person than to drive our students than the employees that work within our district. So if there's anyone that you know, send them our way. Arlene, thank you. We had 3 phone calls today on that ad you placed. So we're hoping to have more trainees behind our wheel, soon to be a Riverhead employee. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the opportunity.
So before we conclude our presentation, a couple things. I know we received a few questions that didn't make it into the presentation, so let me see if I can just address those, if I may. We were asked about average age of buses. You saw the slide there that showed the age of our fleet and the number of years the buses stay on the road and rotate out. So we know from experience from the Department of Transportation that after about 7 years, it becomes more expensive and more difficult to get a bus to pass the DOT inspections, which are very rigorous. And after about 10 years, we're really going backwards in terms of the expense of maintaining the vehicle. These buses are very lovingly maintained by our staff over the summer. Our drivers and monitors come back as summer cleaners. The buses are stripped down to the bare bones and are cleaned. It's amazing what we find, what students bring onto buses. But they get a lot of abuse. The stops, the starts, the cold, the general maintenance that you need. So we like to see a bus be retired between 7 and 10 years of age, which is one of the reasons why we are very thankful to the board and to the community for supporting our bus purchase plan. It enables us to rotate older vehicles out. The vehicles that are rotated out are sold on the board-approved methodology. It's Auctions International. It's a website where municipalities can sell surplus goods. We get reasonable prices for our vehicles, but one of the things that I'm very proud of what we do is we try to get whatever we can out of that vehicle before we sell it. So, for example, we had a bus that needed a new set of stairs. We were accessing a bus. We took those stairs out of the bus that was going out to be accessed and put it in our vehicle, and now we have, we have more life from our existing vehicle. So we were also asked about ride sharing. So we talked a little bit about how the BOCES services works. Last year, during the COVID closure from March 13th through the end of June, we were not charged by BOCES for any of those costs that normally we would have to pay, which was very fortunate. Similarly, we did not charge our intermunicipal partners for their contracts for the service time of the COVID closure in between March and June. Now, we did have to pay our drivers in full, and we had to pay our drivers in full because the governor's executive order required us to. So there was a slight cost to the district on that. But overall, the money that the contracts bring in more than make up for that difference and help us cover our costs. We try always to find other districts that want to partner up with us. This year, one of the districts decided to go with a private carrier when they had previously partnered with us. I'm hopeful in the future they'll come back. But obviously, each district needs to make a choice about what's in their best interests. We were just on the phone today with a district geographically close to us that were inquiring about shared services for using our maintenance shop for their fleet. We are always, willing to talk to anyone who's interested in sharing services. The governor has placed a premium on municipalities that share our services, and we're very proud of the program that we have here. I just want to check, I think those are the main questions. There was a question about the days when schools are closed for some of our private and parochial schools, BOCES placements. It's important to remember that those schools don't necessarily operate on the same calendar that we do. So we have to, once the first day of school happens here, we are required to provide transportation for our private parochial charter schools from that day forward till the end of the school year. So for example, we're closed on some holidays, whereas a parochial school may not be closed on those holidays. We still have to run our buses to those schools on those days. And then there was a question about state aid received for students that are not district residents that we contract with. Yes, we receive transportation aid for those runs. Part of the state aid reporting that my office takes care of is that we have to show the state how much money we're bringing in from other districts that are our intermunicipal partners. That gets factored into our aid costs. But you'll see later on tonight, we're going to go through some state aid numbers, and you'll see our transportation aid is going up. So obviously, the program is working. I think those were the questions that you had. If I missed any, I apologize. And if there's any, if there's any other questions, we're happy to answer them. I do just want to say one thing. I could not be prouder of the transportation staff, from Mr. Moore and Ms. Furcht to our mechanics, our office staff, our drivers and monitors. I meet every driver that gets hired in this district, and I say the same message to them because I think it's so very important. They are the first people to see our students in the morning and the last people to see our students in the evening. And the tone that they set with our students on the buses goes a long way to determine the kind of day that they have in our classrooms. The positive tone that they set on the buses leads to a positive learning experience in the classrooms, which is obviously what we're all here to see happen. These drivers and monitors work unusual hours. They work very early in the morning, then there's a big break in the middle of the day, and they come back and they work in the late afternoon into the evening. They have a very difficult job. I couldn't be prouder of the work that they do. And I want to thank the entire department for everything that they do to help make this possible. I know as a parent, putting my sons on a school bus and letting somebody else drive them away is intimidating. the community should feel very confident in the drivers and monitors that we have on our buses. Are there any questions?
I just want to thank Let and Glet for coming out tonight and giving us this presentation. And I would like you to personally go back to your staff and thank them for me. And I'm very appreciative of everything they do to keep our buses running and make sure we have a safe program that is an envy of many districts around us. So thank you, and thank you to your staff.
Thank you.
I want to also thank you, and I also want you to go back tomorrow morning and you tell your staff that Riverhead Central School District is not, absolutely 100% not selling the transportation department. End of story. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time.
Yes. I'd like to say that I'm very grateful for all the work that you put forward. You know, you're very proactive. I know with sitting on the audit and the policy committees for the board, I always hear, you know, we have to change this policy. We're doing more continual training and testing requirements. We have to, you know, make our policies work that way. I mean, I've been here for 9 years, and I know between getting a new facility, proper working conditions, the propane buses, planning out the 5-year plans for rotating out the buses, that I know when I first began, it was, we're looking into new software to be new efficient with the bus routes. And everything that you've done and your department has done has been great, efficient, and not only that, you get all of our students to school in a safe environment and on time. So kudos, because kudos to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also want to thank you guys for the job you're doing, and also when you came up with that 5-year plan, that was great. That was 5 years ago, or for 2 years ago, we're buying a bus, and in 3 years from now, we're going to pay the same price. So great job on that. Thank you.
Yes, I also want to thank you for transporting our precious cargo, so I appreciate it. I do have a question, Sam. So when we analyze the, and I think you might have spoken a bit towards it, where we're spending more BOCES this year instead of our own district transporting, is it because of the drivers, or were able to analyze?
Yeah.
So this way we can get them more in-house again?
Yeah, and I thank you for the prior warning on the question. I appreciate it. So at the beginning of the year, we anticipated an expense for BOCES transportation of $1.1 million. Obviously, that number is going to go down, as Let and Colette referred to. You know, just this month alone, we were able to cancel $37,000 or $39,000 worth of contracts with BOCES to help bring that in. The more drivers we can get in-house, the more routes we can take back from BOCES. And we can provide these services at a much cheaper rate than what BOCES does. Are we ever going to be in a position where we have no BOCES transportation? I don't think so, because of the example that Colette gave. We have a student whose special ed placement is at a school in Comac. It's not efficient for us to take a bus, a driver, and a monitor out of service for the entire day from doing anything else to bring the student up there and back. It's more efficient from a human resources standpoint to use BOCES. But the more routes that we can bring back for BOCES, for homeless transportation, for other school placements, as we grow our stable of drivers, that number will drop. I don't suspect that it's going to be anywhere close to the $1.1 million, but I need to estimate at the high end, based on, you know, where the placement was at the beginning of the year, to make sure we do have enough money when the end of the year comes. I can't be short on that.
Right, to get it down to where we were historically.
Correct.
And also, are we, I know that there's situations where to do curb to curb, getting to those homes. Are we finding it an issue with I don't know what the size of your, the wheelchair, like, I know that which was a good decision to do the 30, you know, so this way those children are included, and, you know, in a typical neighborhood, there's no problem navigating.
Right.
But we do live in an area where there are those, you know, dirt roads and so forth. So are you seeing, you know, any problem with that.
So the biggest issue that we have in terms of unique curb-to-curb or door-to-doors, sometimes, and there's a difference there in the parlance, transportation is for students who live in private communities. Our insurance, NYSER, will not cover us when we take the bus off of the public road and go into a private community. And so we don't, because it's not covered by insurance. So in those cases, we have to farm the contracts out to BOCES who have contract carriers that are willing to do that. Either they have the insurance that covers them, or they're willing to take a risk. We are not willing to take the risk because we're dealing with the public, the public dollar and the public property here in terms of the buses, so that's not a risk we're willing to take. We have had conversations with NYSER in the past about expanding the policy. They are a little reluctant to go down that. 30 passenger vehicles can certainly service those areas, the private communities. It's not a question of the ability to get in there. Physically, it's a question of the insurance doesn't cover it.
Okay, so it's insurance.
Right, and
Okay.
I don't, I think I speak for my colleagues here. We don't feel comfortable doing something that the insurance company has told us they're not going to cover. So,
Thank you.
Can I just say something?
please.
I just want to thank both of you for the presentation. I know 2 weeks ago when I started to ask about the transportation department, I'm not sure that my inquiry was clear. And so it was really just to find out how it's operating, how the buses are running, what's happening during COVID. And honestly, if there's any way that we could save money for our district somehow. So I just want to say that I'm really pleased with the presentation that you guys gave. It was extremely informative, and please let everyone know also how much I appreciate all the hard work. It's very clear that you are one of the hardest working departments, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And I echo what we've heard over and over this evening. Thank you both, Let and Colette, as well as your entire department, drivers, monitors, mechanics, and your clerical staff. You truly are a model of efficiency that other districts can learn from. And we're grateful to have such a fine transportation department in our district. So thank you both for presenting tonight. Thank you, Mr. Schneider, as well. Go home, get some rest, because 5:15 comes pretty quick.
Thank you all very
Good
much for
night.
your time.
Thank you. At this point, and I just want to make a comment because while we were listening to the presentation, Mr. Hines was sweating because the live stream apparently went out, and but it was recorded via Zoom. So anyone at home now that's listening, anything that you missed, that recording should be up tomorrow, Mr. Hines, most likely. So anything you missed, if you log back in tomorrow, you should be able to catch up. So we apologize for that. And at this point, we're going to, thank you. We're going to move to our graduation rate presentation. A couple of weeks ago, New York State released the 4-year graduation rate for the 2016 cohort, which were the students, for the most part, that graduated in June of 2020. So this evening, we have Mr. Sean O'Hara, our high school principal, is here joining us. But before I turn the microphone over to him, I just want to thank him, as well as the high school team, Kellyanne Parlato, Nicole Taylor, Jason Rotkamp, the assistant principals, Chuck Assar, guidance director, and our data coordinator, Chris Amato. They all worked tirelessly past more than a week putting this presentation together. We know we have work to do, but we want to share with you tonight the work that has been taking place. We're proud of those efforts. I also want to mention Denise Stevenson, our E&L director of and world languages, grades 5-12, is quarantined at home. But when Mr. O'Hara is done speaking, Denise recorded her portion of the presentation, and so we'll be able to play that for you. Hopefully, technology will work for us. So. The first slide is cohort and graduation rate. So accountability is based on a 5-year and a 6-year graduation rate. So Riverhead High School is in good standing, And due to the fact that COVID prevented Regents exams from happening in June of 2020, the state decided no changes to accountability are to happen, at least for the remainder of this year. And the 2016 cohort, there are students that entered grade 9 in 2016. Unfortunately, though, we have students who leave the district. Some of them leave the district with documentation. And if they leave with documentation for a variety of reasons, they do not continue in our cohort, and for graduation rate, they're not counted. But unfortunately, there are some students who do leave, and we don't have any forwarding information on those students, and then they remain in the graduation, in that cohort, and they're counted in the graduation rate. So at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. O'Hara. Do we need to pass this one back? Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Tona. Good evening, members of our Board of Education. Thank you for the opportunity to present this evening. As Ms. Tona explained, our four-year graduation rate is determined by cohort. Our graduating class of 2020 entered 9th grade in 2016. Our 2020 or 2016 cohort graduation rate for Riverhead High School is 79%. The graph before you shows our graduation rate compared to New York State and Suffolk County for the last 6 years, with 2020 or the 2016 cohort displayed on the far right. As you can see, sorry, that's the wrong chart, my apologies. As you can see, this is a decline from previous years, and it would be an understatement to say that this is not where we want to be. However, it is important to acknowledge the improvement in several of our subgroups. This graph displayed shows a 3-year comparison of some of our subgroups. In 5 of the subgroups displayed, we have performed higher than the previous 2 years. On this graph, New York State is represented in gray, Suffolk County is indicated by red, and Riverhead High School is represented by blue. For 5 of the subgroups displayed, we performed higher than the state rate for both of those, for those subgroups. Let me say that again, I apologize. For 5 of the subgroups displayed, we performed higher than the state rate for those subgroups. For 3 of the subgroups displayed, we performed at or higher than both the state and Suffolk County graduation rates for those subgroups. We are proud of the work that our teachers do on a daily basis. We are proud of the resiliency and hard work on display each day by our students. And we are proud of the programs that we are able to offer. In fact, we just received notice that we were one of 232 schools in the country to have earned the College Board's AP Computer Science Female Diversity Award, acknowledging our work toward equal gender representation during the 2019-2020 school year. However, we know that there is work to do, and we have already begun our next level of work. Of great concern is our dropout rate. From looking at the data, we know that 56 of the 70 students who exited early left prior to the 2019-2020 school year. By drilling down deeper into our dropout and still enrolled data, we are able to, and we must have, courageous conversations about re-engagement strategies and programs. When looking at our dropout rate for 2020, If we consider that those who are still enrolled were not on track to complete within 4 years, we can see that by the time we began the 2019-2020 school year, our best possible outcome would have been 81%. The next graph shows us the amount of time that some of our students who exited early spent with us. This shows us that 28 of the students were with us for less than 1 year. 19 of the students were with us for 1 to 2 years. 17 of the students were with us for 2 to 3 years. And 6 of the students were with us for more than 3 years. If we look at the 2017 cohort in comparison to the 2016 cohort, we can see improvement in the number of students who have exited prior to their 4th year. For this current year and moving forward, we need to identify those who are at risk for not finishing on time sooner, as well as those who have left or who may leave early, and we must make an effort to re-engage them and develop a program for support. Make no mistake, our high school administrative team is not just looking to improve the overall graduation rate. We are committed to crushing it, and our ultimate goal is to be recognized among top schools in New York State. Our existing support in place includes the hard work of our instructional support and student support teams. Each conducts meetings based on referrals in order to ensure that we have proper supports in place for students who are at risk. For ELA and math, we have systems in place to ensure that we identify students entering grade 9 who require stronger support, and we provide them with that support. We offer repeater courses for all students who may need them. In the event that a student may not have been successful in a course the first time through, Credit Recovery offers opportunities for all seniors who are shy of graduation requirements in order for them to complete on time. For the past 2 years, we have run the Swell program, which is designed to support our students who require more intensive support with executive functioning, homework, and provides opportunities for social interaction. And we perform home visits as an intervention strategy for students who have excessive absences after all means of communication have been exhausted. In addition, our 2019-2020 initiatives included a reboot of our business program featuring half-year courses, a work-study program, and a business advisory board made up of community business owners. In support of a district initiative, we created a high school data team. Throughout the 2019-2020 school year, our data team, made up of teachers and administrators, worked hard looking at data from prior Regents exams and prepared to hold a data carousel in March, which was to be an opportunity for all of our faculty members to engage in important discussions while preparing for the June Regents exams, which were ultimately canceled. This work continues. However, under the current restrictions, we need to tweak the format of our data carousel. We implemented Ways of Kindness, our building-wide positive behavior recognition program. And last year, we introduced our Parent Admin Connection, or PAC. We know that parent involvement in any form can have a positive impact on student achievement. The High School Parent Admin Connection, or PAC, provides a platform for parents to engage in roundtable type discussions with the high school administration. Rather than create an agenda for these meetings, our conversations develop organically. Currently in year 2, we have experienced an increase in our attendance, possibly as a result of the virtual format, and we are hopeful that our PAC participation will continue to grow. For this current school year, we continue to use our existing supports and build upon our initiatives from 2019-2020. In addition, we have been performing early exit interventions, parent portal outreach and training, and we are in the process of expanding our re-engagement task force to include teachers. This committee will join us in analyzing historical dropout data, conducting a school climate survey of all stakeholders, and create an early warning system in order to identify students who are at risk for exiting early, as well as those who are at risk for not meeting graduation requirements on time. We are also in communication with Ms. Tona regarding the creation of an alternative program using existing resources. The hope is that we can offer an academy or an alternative program that will help re-engage and support students who are at risk of exiting early, not completing on time, or who may have difficulty being successful in a traditional high school model. In addition, we continue to work closely with Ms. Stevenson, our Director of E&L and World Languages for grades 5 through 12, who has recorded information that we will now share.
Good evening. My name is Denise Stevenson, and I am the Director of E&L and World Languages for grades 5 through 12. I'd like to thank the Board of Education for allowing me to present virtually this evening as I am quarantined. Tonight, I'll be presenting on the E&L graduation rate for the 2016 cohort. As you know, Riverhead's E&L students had a graduation rate of 41% for the 2016 cohort. This is the same graduation rate for E&L students across Suffolk County. However, it is lower than the New York State graduation rate for ELs, which is at 46%. I'd like to bring your attention to one bright spot. If you look at the still enrolled column that is indicated by the green arrow, you'll see that 21% or 31 students are still attending this year. If even just 10 of those students were able to graduate this year, that would bring our graduation rate for ELs to 48%, which would exceed both the Suffolk County and New York State rate. We will be tracking these 31 students, monitoring their progress, and supporting them for the remainder of the year. I can provide an update for you on their progress at a later date. Why do some E&L students need extra time to graduate? Research indicates that it takes between 5 to 7 years to learn a language. Our new-to-country students that start as 9th graders may speak little or no English when they arrive and will need additional time to graduate. Other students may enter our schools mid-year, which means they will have missed a portion of the curriculum. For example, a student that registers after January will have missed half of the curriculum, and a student that registers in May or June will still be counted in the cohort with students that started in September. Others have interrupted education. These are referred to as SIFE, or students with interrupted formal education. Others may have been attending school, but have low literacy due to inadequate educational systems in their country. Research shows these SIFE students are at a high risk to drop out. This chart shows the number of SIFE students that are currently enrolled at the high school. As you can see, there was one SIFE student in the 2016 cohort that is still enrolled but did not graduate last year. Report that she's on track to graduate this year. There are 2 SIFE students in the 2017 cohort who should be graduating this year. It looks like one of them will make it, but the other is already 20 years old and needs to work. Despite our efforts, he is likely to drop out soon. This is the story for many of our SIFE students. Statistically, SIFE students across the state are unlikely to make it to graduation. We support them as best we can, but many of them are older and will need to work to support themselves and their families. What are we doing to help? We've been developing a transitional bilingual program at the high school for several years. It has been challenging to find highly qualified bilingual certified candidates. We've partnered with the College of St. Rose and Stony Brook University to recruit candidates or to help our teachers get their bilingual extension. We've been successful, and we are now in our second year of a full transitional bilingual program at the high school. A transitional bilingual program is one that starts with a large percentage of instruction in Spanish, but transitions to English during the school year. The goal is to allow the students to learn the content material necessary to pass the Regents exams while they are learning English. Of course, all students need to reach a high level of fluency in order to pass the English Regents. We believe that this bilingual program will increase our future graduation rates for ENL students. In addition to our bilingual program, this list shows some of the other ways that we support our ENL students. And I must also give credit to our outstanding department of ENL certified teachers that go above and beyond to support the ENL students every day. One of our concerns with our dropouts is that many of them are starting school as older students. Typically, 9th grade students are either 14 or 15 years old. As we can see on the chart, many L students that are starting 9th grade at 16, 17, or 18 years old are more likely to drop out, usually so that they can work full-time. Of the 31 students that are still enrolled, most of them started at age 14 or 15, but we recognize the need for additional time to meet the requirements of a high school diploma. Moving forward, we continue to develop these programs for our ENL students with a focus on the support they need as bilingual students. We look forward to seeing improved graduation rates for our students in the coming years, as we are currently in year 2 of our full bilingual program at the high school. Thank you for your opportunity to speak to you tonight.
All right. So thank you, Ms. Stevenson. I know she's watching at home. And thank you to Mr. O'Hara, who's here with us now. We are planning to do a follow-up presentation in the spring so that we can give you more information as the year progresses. I hope you found this presentation comprehensive. It was very interesting for all of us to put this together, and honestly very gratifying to look at all the work that's happening at the high school and the team approach. And as both Mr. O'Hara and Ms. Stevenson said, our teachers are instrumental here, and everyone wants to see all of our students graduate. We recognize that the dropout rate is probably the biggest concern affecting our graduation rate at this time. But we do recognize that some students need more than 4 years to graduate, and the accountability formula for New York State factors in 5-year and 6-year graduation. So if a student can't make it in 4, we hope that they stay with us, and our efforts have been to reach out and try to engage students and families so that the students will stay with us and cross that finish line, because we want everyone to have a high school diploma and move on and be successful adults. So does anyone have any questions for either myself or Mr. O'Hara?
I do. Could you list the subgroups that you said where we exceeded, and then the ones that we didn't? Could you list them by name? Like, could you?
Yes, I
parse that for
can.
me?
I just,
Good.
Mr. Hines, can you help me?
I think you have to switch the presentation.
Thank you. Okay, if you have, thank you, Robert. That's a little blurry for me, and I don't want to misspeak. I have a copy here. I had mentioned that there were 5 subgroups
So it's 5?
in the 3-year comparison of our subgroups, where we displayed, where we performed higher than the previous 2 years. That would be black, white, IEP, non-IEP, and non-ELL.
And so is it 7 groups altogether?
I'm sorry?
Was it 7? 5 out of, is that 5 out of 7? 5? How many
Yeah,
subgroups?
1, 2, 3,
And then
4.
the other
Yes.
two, the other 2 subgroups that perform below are,
Bear with me.
what's left? Oh, okay, I got it. Hispanic and ELL, right?
Yes. Hispanic, ELL. Okay, then the next chart that I showed, bear with me for a second. I had mentioned that for 5 of the subgroups displayed, we performed higher than the state rate for those subgroups.
And Mr. O'Hara, so the ELL, you're thinking it's the dropout rate that has contributed to the low graduation?
We do have a large number of E&L students who were in that dropout population, and we did have a large number of students who did not, they were not in the district for some not even a year. Some were here for 1 to 2 years, and some for up to 3.
And our ELL and our, just to inform everybody, in our IEP, students are afforded the no harm policy. So if in the future they ought to take Regents, it's not included in their 4th quarter. Great. So correct, right?
No, I have to double check that.
That's a policy.
Right, yes,
That's a
but
policy.
the graduation rate is determined, every student has to pass the 5 Regents exams for graduation.
Right.
Some of the E&L students who arrive later as older students, they can be exempted from like a global exam. But the other thing to remember is we had Regents exemptions last year.
Right.
But the majority of students take those Regents exams, typically in their junior year, they have the 5 done. But some students who need more time, especially students who come to the high school with little or no English, we can't expect them to take the Regents exams at the same time that native English speakers can. So they need that additional time. So the 4-year graduation rate includes students who, as Ms. Stevenson said, 31 students are still enrolled. So they just need more time to master the content and the language.
Okay, and I know there was a talk about, like I saw that there's going to be outreach to that community. And did we get that list together? There was that faith and community list that they were going to, I think the past couple of years, try to get together and then start being proactive about reaching out to the community?
Yes, we've started to communicate with local churches. Olav Eastern Long Island has been helpful to us. We continue to partner with them, and we are communicating more and more with outside organizations to help us reach parents, as well as Mr. O'Hara said, there's an initiative at the high school to bring parents into the high school, one-on-one, sit down. This is the parent portal. These are the things that you need to know to support your child so that they can be successful in school.
Okay. I know that there was a comparison to Suffolk County for ELL, but, across the whole Suffolk County, I mean, you have some communities that they only have 3 ELL or 4, so they can spend more time, but I'm just concerned with that, with what's going on with the ELL and making sure they get that support. I know Westbury had a graduation rate of 57% and Central Islip of 67%, and much lower dropout rate. So I would just like to see that, improvement for that community.
We would as well. That's what we're working
Because,
towards.
and because I think that's a better comparison, as these are districts, especially Westbury, have about the same amount of ELL students as that we do in graduating, because we have a huge number, and so do they, so.
Thank you, Mrs. Healy. Does anyone else have a question?
Yes, along that lines, I know South Huntington, which has a high Hispanic population, they're graduating like 80% of their ENLs. I have asked for us to send a team to South Huntington to find out what they're doing that they can graduate 80% of their ENLs. And as far as I know, no one's ever gone.
We haven't visited there recently. I know we just had Ms. Stevenson coordinated a Zoom call with Southampton with their ENL team. So we continue to explore all options. COVID makes it a little difficult right now to travel to go visit, but yes, Ms. Stevenson's watching right now. If she was here in person, she'd be answering these questions as well. But yeah, we'll look into South Huntington.
And I'm also concerned, Ms. Stevenson said that it's 5 to 7 years to learn a language, but I think on average it's 3 years in an ENL program before they test out of ENL.
That's incorrect. Research says up to 6 to 7 years. And that's
Okay.
been presented prior.
Okay, I've just seen districts where it's about 3 years in the research I've done. I'd also like to see us go to a full bilingual program where on one day the class is taught in Spanish, the next day it's taught in completely English. I think this would be beneficial to both our ENL students and also our English-speaking students who'd want to learn Spanish. So I think that way you'd have those kids move into that program along with the ENL. I think
Yes.
that's the pattern we should be looking at.
I agree. Actually, the skeleton of the strategic plan includes exploring bilingual education starting at kindergarten. While we do have some bilingual classes, one in every grade level at Phillips, we have bilingual classes at Pulaski and the middle school and high school. They are not for every student. And the issue that we would have is staffing, both the hiring of additional staff and hiring staff that are bilingual. So we have, as a district, over the past several years, this is my 5th year in the district, for all 5 of those years, we look to hire bilingual candidates whenever we can. And it's difficult to find them. And on an elementary level, if we were able to have all bilingual teachers, that would afford us the option of creating bilingual classes without additional cost, but it's not practical we can't find those candidates. So we are fortunate we have quite a few bilingual teachers in the district. But as positions open, we continue to look for bilingual candidates.
I know it's difficult with our budget situation, but when we get out of this, I'd like to see maybe that we help our teachers go to that bilingual, whether we give them a stipend or look to have somehow their cost for going back to get that
We've been
covered.
we've been partnering with Stony Brook, and every other year they offer TESOL certificates, and every other year it's bilingual extensions. The issue with a bilingual extension is you need to have a high level of proficiency in that foreign language. So we would be looking for Spanish-speaking candidates. So not every teacher that's here would ever be a candidate because they just don't have that background. The TESOL would be something that we could encourage more teachers to get that certification because it does not require proficiency in a language other than English. But, TESOL certificate is not the same as a bilingual extension. They're two different things.
And a lot of this talk is mostly about Hispanic and Spanish speaking. I know we have a population that speak other languages. Are they being forgotten, or what is being done for them?
Those students, if they qualify for English as a new language service, they absolutely are enrolled. Bilingual is necessary when I believe it's 30 students on a grade level that speak the same language. So in this district, Spanish is the predominant language that would qualify for bilingual.
I'm sure there's a Polish population also
Yeah,
that need it. And I'd just like to make sure that they're getting the same type of effort for them as they don't get lost to the Spanish speaking.
They're enrolled in English as a new language classes. They learn English alongside students who speak any other language as their first language.
I would like to ask for a list. Years ago, it was broken down into languages, and at one point, Riverhead had 41 different languages in this district, in this school, at that time. Now, I'm going back quite a while, but I would like to see a list of what languages are actually spoken within this district.
Sure, I think we have that. I think either Liz Caduto and Denise Stevenson probably have that in their files. They keep track of that. So I'll get that to the board.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
Yes, and I do remember from the presentation we were reporting numbers with the exit program. I do know that on the elementary level, of course, they're like sponges, so they left the E&L program much quicker. But I do remember that Ms. Stevenson had said that, we're talking about secondary level right now, that it takes at least 5. Because, for me to learn a new language now, forget it, But I do remember that, yes.
Thank you.
Is that it?
All right. So thank you, Mr. O'Hara. I know you have an early morning as well, so we thank you and your team and all the teachers at the high school for all of their efforts.
We appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have one more presentation.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to turn this over to Mr. Schneider to talk about state aid.
While I wait for Mr. Hines to move the slides along and sanitize the controller, so just so you know where we are, we had the transportation presentation, which was done on yellow for school bus yellow for your ease. The graduation rate was on lilac, and now we're in the blue color presentation for state aid. Thanks. Okay, so here we are to talk about state aid. The governor's budget came out last week, and it proposed a budget that incorporates federal stimulus money as part of the aid that's paid to school districts. As part of the governor's budget, the state publishes every year something called state aid runs. Now, I want to, if you've looked at the state aid runs, I imagine some of the board members have, I want to put a big asterisk on these. For the first time, the governor is listing as part of state aid the projected STAR money that is paid by the state on behalf of homeowners' property taxes. I believe that can result in a misleading bottom line that I want to take a minute to try to thread out. The governor's proposal also consolidates several, eight aid categories into something called services aid, which makes it hard to compare from year to year because he's proposing essentially an entire new way of looking at the state aid. So I have threaded that out for you. So here are some historical trends for state aid. You can see that in terms of high costs, our foundation aid is flat under the governor's proposal. We have a big increase in high cost, excess cost aid. This is aid that we receive for students who have special education needs that are educated in other public schools or other BOCES programs. So you can see we have a big increase there. There is a reduction in the services aid category. So the services aid category is replacing, under the governor's proposal, the categories that I have listed just under the yellow bar on the presentation. And then you can see at the bottom what the state is doing is they, much like we saw last year with the pandemic adjustment and the money that was then replaced under the CARES Act, the state is now proposing a pandemic federal, a local district funding adjustment is what they're calling it, and then a COVID-19 supplemental stimulus money from the federal government, and lo and behold, the numbers equal out again. We should take a minute to note here that the CARES Act money came with significant restrictions on how that money could be used. So when they first came out with the state aid plan, you'll recall, they said, oh, don't worry about reduction of state aid, we have CARES Act to supplement that loss. Then later on they said, oh, and by the way, that CARES Act money has significant restrictions on how you can use it. Conveniently, or inconveniently, those rules came out after we had set the budget, so we had to move around some of our expenses in order to meet the CARES Act rules. It is not yet known whether this COVID-19 supplemental stimulus money is going to have similar restrictions on it. I have seen nothing on it. I have to assume there's going to be something, but they have not published it yet. So what exactly is services aid? So services aid, under the governor's proposal, consolidates former classes of aid into one block grant. Now we have, thanks to Questar and New York State Association of School Business Officials, we've broken down exactly what those categories of aid are, and you can see where there's a reduction. Across the state, there's a 16% reduction in the services aid category. Our reduction is less, it's about 7%, but it certainly is a hit that is difficult for us to absorb given the overall financial standing we have as a result of being on a contingent budget. Now, the state aid runs that we talked about earlier, for the first time, the governor is listing the STAR money that is paid by the state on behalf of taxpayers for property taxes. So again, just so everybody's on the same page, STAR payments are used to offset levy collection in lieu of money that a homeowner would pay. As the STAR money decreases, and the STAR money has gone down significantly, not only in this district, but in districts all across the state over the last 10 years, the homeowners have to pay more of that money because their property taxes are not being offset by the STAR payment. The governor's state aid runs include the STAR payment, but it's not really a form of state aid. So if you look at the state aid run, and I know that folks watching at home are not going to be able to see this, but the board can see it's a computerized run. It looks like, if you look at it, that Riverhead has a reduction of $196,000. Well, that's not really true, because our state aid is actually up slightly, but our STAR payments are down. So in terms of the district, we're actually going to yield a little bit more revenue. In terms of the homeowners, the property owners, they're going to have to pay more money in property taxes because of the loss in STAR payments that the state was essentially paying a portion of their property taxes. I have a chart here that shows the historical trends of STAR for this district, and you can see that there has been a significant drop-off. In 2012, the state was paying, on behalf of homeowners, $8.3 million of their property taxes through the STAR program. Next year, it's going to be just north of $6 million. And so, again, there is no net change to the school in terms of the revenue we take in, but there is a net change to the taxes that homeowners pay. If anybody on the board qualifies for STAR, you've obviously seen the amount of STAR that the state is paying on your behalf has decreased, as it has all across the state. The trend here is the state is getting out of the STAR program. They're decreasing the payments. They're making it more difficult for people to apply for STAR. They're changing the way the STAR payments work as part of a phase out of the program. So here are some other important notes. The governor's proposals are built on the state receiving $6 billion, in federal stimulus money. Should the state receive additional federal funds, we're told that additional aid would be dispersed to school districts. That's what they're saying today. I imagine that that is subject to change. There was a comment printed in an upstate newspaper from a spokesman for the New York State Division of Budget, who says that the state plans to pay school districts 100% of anticipated aid for this year. Mr. Doerr, you have asked me a number of occasions whether we have any information as to whether the state intends to make good on its state aid payments for this year. That is the first indication I've gotten. This was printed, I think, in a Poughkeepsie newspaper. I am hopeful that that is actually true, so we'll take it at face value and say the state plans on paying us our full amount of state aid for this year. No funds will be withheld, the department spokesman said. As part of that, additionally, the state is announced that by March 31st, they are going to pay whatever they owe from last year. They withheld 20% of our state aid from last year. So we kind of have that money floating out there as a receivable. I'm hopeful that they come through with that as well. We're going to take them at their word according to this quote and say that that's going to happen. I will get back to you when it actually does. The figures that we looked at briefly this evening are just the governor's proposal. So we know how this works. The legislature needs to enact a budget by April 1st. Historically, the legislature has supplemented the governor's proposal with additional funds. I am hopeful that will happen again this year. We're obviously in very unprecedented times, and I think a lot of what is going to happen is going to be contingent on the kind of aid that the federal government provides to all states, including New York. Ms. Toner.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. So what does this mean for us in Riverhead? As Mr. Schneider outlined, as of now, the governor's budget proposal provides us with a very modest increase in state aid. We know that we have a hill to climb, being on a contingent budget this year that is essentially a year's worth of levy growth that we will not have. So we do feel that we need to ask our local politicians for some assistance. Mr. Schneider and I reached out to our local politicians, and we have an appointment just to meet and chat with Assemblyman Thiel, Assemblywoman Giglio, and State Senator Palumbo. But with the board's permission, we would like to lobby a little bit and ask for some additional aid and present the plight of our district to them. We're meeting with them via Zoom in the middle of February. So with the board's permission, we'd like to have that conversation with them.
I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
All right. Thank you. I'll keep you updated. And, just keeping everything in mind that the 21-22 budget, it'll be a challenge to put it together, but together we'll do the best that we can to provide as much as we can for our students. So thank you. And if anyone has any questions.
Any questions? Doesn't look like it. So, thank you, Ms. Toner. Thank you, everybody.
That ends the superintendent's update. It's a long one.
Thank God. That was a rough one. Okay. Can I have consent agenda? Can I have a motion, please? Thank you. Could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any cares and concerns? No? All in favor? Motion passes. We have no old business. We have, under new business, we got an approval of agreement. This agreement is with the Suffolk County, approves a Suffolk County concerning COVID testing in the district. Can I have a motion, please? Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Kukunis, Dr. Kukunis. Any cares and concerns? Not seeing any. All in favor? Thank you. Passes. Letter B, approval of memorandum of agreement, RCFA, RTAA, which is the teaching assistants, CSEA, teachers aid unit. All of these are all concerning the use of personal sick time during the COVID pandemic. Do we have any, do I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Can I have a second? Thank you, Brian. Any cares and concerns or questions from the board? Not seeing any? All in favor? Motion passes. We also, let us see, we have approval of memorandum of agreement for an individual CSEA member. It concerns the use of accumulated sick time. Can I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Virginia?
No, okay.
Thank you. Any cares and concerns? Not seeing any. All in favor? Motion passes. Letter D, approval of contract. This is a contract between the school district and Nancy Hancock to chair meetings of the Committee on Special Education and Committee on Preschool Education for a total cost not to exceed $15,000. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Thank you, Virginia. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Kukunis. Any cares or concerns?
Just for the community, because I've had some questions on it, just to clarify why we are increasing the contract for Nancy Hancock.
Sure. We did post for a psychologist to replace the psychologist that recently resigned. The candidates that we had hoped to move forward, unfortunately, were not able to move forward, so we reposted the position. So in the interim, we do need some assistance in the PPS department to chair meetings.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All in favor? Motion passes. Letter E, adoption of a Section 75 findings. This is a recommendation that of an employee to be terminated. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Lyles. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Dorr. Any cares and concerns? None being seen. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. Letter F, adoption of 2021-2022 school district calendar. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Thank you, Virginia. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Sue. Any cares and concerns?
I just have just a quick question. I see that the Wednesday before Thanksgiving is added back into the calendar as a day off that had been taken out in last couple of years.
Different superintendent.
What did we,
It's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving has been a day off for the workforce for the past 4 or 5 years at least. Yeah, no change.
okay, my mistake.
All right, no
Okay.
problem.
All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. Letter G, approval of donation. We have a donation of 4 boxes of children's face masks from East End Lions Club. We want to thank you. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Thank you, Virginia. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Kukunis. Any concerns, questions?
No, just thank you.
All in favor? Thank you. Motion passes, and yes, the Riverhead School District thanks you for the donation. And we have off the floor, we got letter H. And this I'm going to read. Whereas the Board of Education and the Riverhead Central School District wishes to express its concerns about the potential development within the district boundaries that could result in an influx of students to the district. And whereas the Board of Education of the Riverhead Central School District firmly believes in its mission to educate all students who reside within the district, and whereas the Board of Education of Riverhead Central School District takes note of increased demands for instructional space in each of the district's 7 buildings, and whereas the Board of Education of the Riverhead Central School District recognizes the difficult financial situation that would befall the district should it need to accommodate additional students, now therefore be it resolved that it is the sense of the Board of Education of the Riverhead Central School District that continued development of housing within the district, and in particular within the downtown Riverhead area, is unsuitable, and be it further resolved that this is the sense of the Board of Education of the Riverhead Central School District, that existing limits on development of apartments in the downtown Riverhead area should be strictly enforced as they are currently written, and be it further resolved that is the sense of the Board of Education of Riverhead Central School District that any future development should not be permitted without feasible solutions to solve the fiscal costs of expanding instructional space in the district, and be it further resolved that the school district administration is authorized to enter into discussions with the town of Riverhead to achieve these objectives. Can I have a motion? Motion. Thank you, Wallace. Mr. Wallace. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Virginia. Any cares and concerns or questions? Not seeing any. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you, everybody. Opportunity, board members, committees. Who wants to go first? Go ahead, Tress.
The Wellness Committee, made up of myself, Matt Wallace, and Virginia Healy, and members of the district staff, met on January 19th, 2021. This meeting was our annual tour of the cafeterias in the district. The cafeteria program, which is supported entirely through the service of meals, receives no taxpayer dollars for its operation. The program took a hard hit in the closure of school last year, and Keith Graham, the director of school lunch, reviewed the downturn in meal service due to the pandemic. From September 2020 through February 2020, the district had served 8,589 more breakfasts and 26,311 more lunches than had been served in the prior years during that period. The pandemic wiped out those increases. The district is seeing a slight increase in meal service in the last week due to the return of all K through 6 elementary students to full-time in-person instruction, although the figures are nowhere close to where they used to be prior to the pandemic. For example, at Pulaski, the kitchen was serving 500 lunches per day prior to the pandemic and about 140 lunches per day during the cohort instruction. With the return of most students, services back up to 380 lunches per day. At Riley, the kitchen was serving 245 lunches per day prior to the pandemic and about 95 lunches per day during the cohort instruction. With the return of most students, services back up to 195 lunches per day. At Phillips, the kitchen was serving 450 lunches per day prior to the pandemic and about 111 lunches per day during the cohort instruction. With the return of most students, services back up to 293 lunches per day. The committee conducted a taste test of some of the foods that are served in the cafeteria, including sausage and waffles, teriyaki chicken meatballs, which was a big hit, grilled chicken sandwich, barbecue beef rib patty sandwich, cheese pizza, and pepperoni pizza. The committee was very impressed with the quality of the foods available to the students. At Pulaski, we were shown the improvements to the Pulaski kitchen, including the installation of a walk-in freezer in what was formerly a dry goods storage room. The improvements were funded from the Cafeteria Capital Reserve, which holds excess fund balance from the cafeteria fund. The Cafeteria Capital Reserve allows the district to make improvements to our kitchens without having to use taxpayers' dollars for the work. At Phillips, we were shown a small cooking space. Mr. Graham would like to see the Cafeteria Capital Reserve Fund an expansion to the cooking hood and an increase in the number of ovens available for use at Phillips, which is generally the busiest kitchen in the district. And it was quite busy when we were there. All stoves and ovens must be under a ventilation hood for fire safety. The committee indicated an interest in seeing an estimated project cost for any expansion. We also learned the cafeteria's technique on how to make a peanut butter jelly sandwich. It's very interesting. First, the sliced bread is frozen. Then a food service worker spreads peanut butter on both sides of the bread, which was the enlightening part. Next, the jelly is added to 1 slice of bread and 2 slices are combined to make a sandwich. The sandwiches are then returned to the freezer. On the day of service, the sandwiches are removed, cut, and wrapped. The frozen nature of the sandwiches allows for ease in spreading the peanut butter and cutting the sandwiches. The double peanut butter allows for enough protein to be included to the count sandwiches as a meal under the USDA guidelines. And I just want to say a huge thank you to all the cafeteria staff. They do a phenomenal job. And they don't burn the French fries.
Okay. Committee's over. Any comments or remarks from board members?
No, just that the food was good and the chicken teriyaki meatballs were really delicious. And they work very hard serving the children. And we had an opportunity to be there when the young kids were being served. And that's just sweet. And it was good. They had the sweet potato fries, which we weren't allowed to taste. And I really wanted to get a taste of those. So thank you.
Anyone else have any comments?
Yeah,
I'll make a note, Mrs. Healy, to have sweet potato fries available for the
Thank
committee
you.
next year.
All right. The Health and Safety Committee, made up of Lori Downs, Matt Wallace, and Virginia Healy, myself, and many district staff members met on January 20th, 2021. We heard an update about how our district is faring in the face of the public health crisis. As of the date of our meeting, 78 staff members and 102 students have tested positive for COVID-19. There have been 930 school personnel, students, and staff who have had to quarantine because of close contact. As a reminder, a person who is within 6 feet of a COVID-positive individual for more than 10 minutes is subject to a 10-day quarantine. Due to illness and close contact, the custodial and maintenance department has been short as much as 22% of its workforce. Despite efforts to recruit and hire substitute workers, most substitutes do not want to work in the school setting due to pandemic-related fears. We took the opportunity to praise efforts of the custodial and maintenance departments, which have done their jobs despite the staffing issues. Interestingly, the use of hand sanitizer has declined in the last 2 months, as evidenced by the fact that the custodians are filling the dispensers far less frequently. We urge all employees to use the sanitizers on a regular, frequent basis, and we encourage the students to do so as well. State-mandated water testing will be commencing at the end of February. The district's environmental engineers, J.C. Broderick, will be conducting the tests. Each faucet in the district has been affixed with a unique identifying tags to enable the samples to be tracked by computer. Testing labs are backlogged because of quarantine issues, and thus it is not yet known when the results will be published. Turning to our transportation department, the Suffolk County contractor handling the installation has finished the work on 25 buses as of the date of our meeting. The county is slated to roll the program out to the public in March with a public relations campaign. The program comes at no cost to the district. I guess they're referring to the stop arm, right? Okay. We spoke about the need for additional assistance from the Riverhead Town Police Department during dismissal to help manage the flow of traffic into the schools. Parental pickup numbers have increased this year. A representative from the department who attended our meeting noted that it is difficult for the Riverhead Town Police to recruit and retain traffic control officers, many of whom are hesitant to work during the pandemic. The representative pledged to do what he could to help control traffic during the 15 to 20 minutes of high traffic at dismissal. Sam, you know the use of sanitizer. I think a lot of people are carrying hand sanitizers. Maybe that could be a reason why you're not seeing them using it in the...
I mean, it's certainly possible. It's possible people are, washing their hands in the sink too. It's just an observation that the
Right.
maintenance department has made. We want to make sure that regardless of how people are sanitizing their hands, that they are. That, face masks, social distancing, and barriers all work in conjunction with each other to help control the pandemic.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have anything to say? Mr. Dora?
Yeah, I know with great sadness we lost the Latin program at the high school. Mainly the fact that it's so hard to find Latin teachers, being Latin being a dead language and all. It was really a bright spot in our district, and it's really sad to see it go. But with that, I would like to see us replace that with an American Sign Language program. I know we do have some deaf students in the district. I also think it'd be easy to find teachers in that area, and I think that would add to the bright spot in our language program.
Thank you.
Yeah, we could certainly look into other options. I'm not sure if at this time we can do that for September or the following September, because I have to check with the high school and the middle school to see where they are with scheduling, to see if that unknown can be factored in. So, but we'll definitely look into it. As I mentioned, and I shared with the board, it's one of the board's goals this year, is to start creating a strategic plan. So these are the types of items that would go on that plan for short-term goals and long-term goals.
Wish list item, right? We'll put it on the wish list.
I was going to say, it would help a lot of special ed students. I'm thinking of like if my own daughter couldn't take a language, but ASL, that's something that she might be able to pursue in college. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, no, thanks for that feedback.
Anything else? Any other board members? Okie dokie. We're up to RCFA.
Gregory Wallace, Calverton. The RCFA would like to offer our deepest condolences to the Perez-Shajabin family. Loss of any kind is hard, but it is especially difficult to process and make sense of the extinguishing of a young life. Our thoughts and prayers not only go out to the Perez family, we also extend our thoughts and prayers to students and community members who are grieving this tragic loss. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Opportunity for public comments. I say, come on up.
Hello, I'm Mary Mackey. I have two seniors, Ryan and Sean. Sean is with me tonight, and also I'm president of the high school PTSO. Just two things I just want to add before I get started is I have a question that someone sent in that didn't get to send in one ahead of time. Did the town of Riverhead pay the $4 million tax bill that they owe still?
Yes, they did.
Oh, they did. Excellent. Thank you. And also, I don't know if you're accepting any community members on that Zoom call to the legislators and State Senator Palumbo, but I'm volunteering if you would like. I would love to attend that. I have in the past, and I would just love to attend that if you're opening it up to the any PTOs or community.
Thank you. At this time, it's kind of an introductory meeting, so it looks like it'll just be Mr. Schneider or myself for now.
Okay. Thank you.
But thanks for the offer. We'll keep it in mind for the future.
Thank you. Also, on the bus presentation, my son attends BOCE's HB Ward in the morning, and at 10:30 a.m. when they're heading back to the high school, the bus is packed, 2 to 3 to a seat. So they've mentioned that they're adding a bus, but they haven't yet. So we're concerned about that, and I just figured I would mention it tonight only because of the bus presentation. So again, that bus that goes from HB Ward to the Riverhead High School at 10:30 a.m. is packed.
I appreciate the comment, Mrs. Mackey. I'll definitely look at it tomorrow morning. I know we had an issue with the bus a couple weeks ago. Some of the students were taking it upon themselves to just leave HB Ward and walk back to the high school, which is not something that's permitted.
Right.
But let me see what we can do to ease that overcrowding. We have been running a multiple trip shuttle where the bus will pick them up, drop them off, go back, pick up more. Some students are refusing to wait. Let me see what we can do to ease the overcrowding as quickly as possible.
Thank you. I just want to say hello to the folks at home. And so last Thursday, we had our Zoom PTSO meeting, and our guest speaker was Ms. Nigrell. I figured I would have her join us because we're concerned about the community and teens with depression and not being social and in school. So I just thought that giving the resources out to the community would help them know that help is available on the website. And Ms. Negrell did a wonderful job presenting to our parents out there that there is help for your teens and for your family. And we went over the sites available on our website. So I really appreciated her attending. For any students depressed or overwhelmed at this time, they now have the resources out there that we provide. Also, thank you to Mr. Greg Wallace and the RCFA for their support during our calendar fundraiser. We really appreciate it. It made it very successful. And thank you to the faculty and staff for all their efforts during this challenging time.
Ms. Mackey, your time is up.
It is already?
Yeah.
Oh.
Can you sit down, and then after we get done with the questions that are written in, then you can come back up?
Oh, sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Ms. Lisa.
Okay, our first question is from Karen Ochiogrosso from Riverhead. Does the district have any plans to reopen the middle school and high school to 5 to 4 day in person? If not, why? And if so, what are those plans? And is there any time frame?
Go ahead, Ms. Toner.
Thank you, Mrs. Downs. As I mentioned earlier, the survey went out today for families. So once we see the results of the survey, we will have conversations with the Board of Education to see what next steps can be done this year. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Karen Ochiogrosso sent in another question. Can you please tell me what the district plans to do about the issue of pornography that has been getting into the classrooms as a result of the use of computers in the classroom? Changing passwords will only delay another problem. This is going to happen again. We need to take the computers out of classrooms and get the students back into the classrooms to learn without them. The money the district spent on purchasing these devices for all the students could have been well spent elsewhere.
Go ahead, Ms. Toner.
Thank you, Mrs. Downs. So the issue at the middle school is being addressed. We are in contact with the Riverhead PD, and it is an active investigation. Specific information has been shared with them, any leads that we have in the district. We do feel that the changing of the passwords will help, so we will monitor that. Now, while there is no substitute for full-time in-person instruction, and you've heard me say that many times, that we look forward to the post-COVID days, and we hope they come very soon so that we can get all of our students back to the classroom full-time. However, one of the bright spots during this challenging time has been the increase of our technological fleet of computers, which will afford our students moving forward stronger opportunities to embed technology into their learning, and for our teachers to embed technology into their instruction. It won't look like live synchronous instruction post-COVID, but our teachers have learned so many new ways to embed technology into their teaching, and they're finding it very helpful, and the students find it helpful for their learning. So we're happy to have those additional devices, and we hope that we can increase our devices for all of the students from grades 3 through 12 in the next couple of years. So thank you, Mrs. Achio-Grosso.
I have a question along that lines. Have we looked at moving away from Google Meet? I know other districts have moved away from Google Meets for this reason and moved to more secure like Zoom or WebEx or something.
Yeah, right now, I can't speak too much about the active investigation, but we have some leads that...
The district as a whole moving away from the Google Meet platform and moving to Zoom or WebEx, which may be a more secure, that would stop this type of environment where somebody would have to be actually invited into the classroom instead of just being able to log in.
Well, they go into a waiting room, and the teacher is able to let the students in. So, but the hacker is being creative with how they're hacking. So, but I don't want to say too much because it's an active investigation.
Thank you. Ms. Lisa?
Okay, the next is from Kathy Beresny of Riverhead. Her question is, what is the procedure of cleaning the ventilation system in all 7 classroom buildings for the safety of students and staff? Is it done on a weekly or monthly basis due to the COVID-19 pandemic?
Mr. Schneider, can you please answer that?
Okay, so the classrooms are cleaned daily in terms of, which includes the surfaces, the touch surfaces, the desks, the doorknobs, and the area around the ventilation system. Most of our classrooms are equipped with what's called a unit ventilator, which is a device that brings in fresh air, provides heat to it when heating is necessary, and then pumps that into the classroom. We change the filters on those devices several times a year. There's different types of filters. We've all learned these words since the pandemic. MERV 8, MERV 13. Depends on the filter that's in the classroom, of how often we change it, and the filter that goes in that classroom depends on the type of unit that is in that classroom. We don't have a universal one-size-fits-all for all our classrooms. It depends on the age of the building, when the district was last able to upgrade the system. So my answer to Mrs. Beresny is everything is wiped down and cleaned, dusted every day. The filters themselves are changed out 3 to 4 times a year.
Yeah, if I could just add, Mr. Jacobellis did mention that the filters are checked more often than they have been, than is supposed to happen on a normal year. So because of the pandemic and the desire to make sure that we can ventilate the air as best as we can, those filters are checked on a more frequent basis.
We are running the ventilation system to its maximum capacity in order to help bring as much filtered air into the classroom as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Ms. Lisa?
Okay, next we have someone named Richard Ellis from Calverton. There have been numerous incidents of accounts being hacked and pornography being shown in classes. I want to know if the police were notified for each incident, and are they investigating these crimes?
Thank you. And again, we feel horrible that this is happening, so our apologies to the students, to the teachers, and to the families. But the police have been involved, as I mentioned, and we're hoping that we can come to a swift resolution.
Thank you, Ms. Turner.
Okay. Emily Bedell from Aquabog. She's just wondering how sports will run after school in the spring if we are still on a 2-day hybrid schedule.
Unfortunately, transportation is not available. So the students that are on 2-day hybrid, on the days that they're home on remote, if they're playing on a sports team in the spring, the family will need to find a way to get them to the school for practice and for competitions.
Thank you.
And that's the last.
That's it? Ms. Mackey?
Thank you. I just wanted to also add thank you to the custodial staff for making sure our buildings are safe and clean. I wanted to thank the board for approving the 9th and 10th grade advisors to be reinstated. Faculty members have stepped up to fill these positions, so I thank them as well. The PTSO will continue to be part of the classes and help in any way we can. I also wanted to update the school community and events we are planning while navigating the contingency budget and COVID-19. In December, we did a gingerbread decorating contest. In January, a senior scavenger hunt. I know they had a lot of fun with that, getting out into the community. February, we have Decorate the Halls. That's an advisors, class government, and PTSO sponsored event. In March, we have the lawn signs for seniors. They're being designed as we speak. In April, we hope to have Senior Skills Day, scaled down version from what we could have had last year, perhaps outside, socially distant. In April, that's a Senior Skills Day with changing attire, how to write out a checkbook, things that we wanted to do last year. May, we hope to have Adopt a Senior in a fair and equitable way that all seniors get adopted. We're working that out with Mr. O'Hara. A 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade movie night. That's being worked out too, hopefully. If we could find a location, we've been offered a screen at a discounted price, and of course, socially distant and safe. Also in May, hopefully a drive-by senior parade, similar to last year, only perhaps with floats and other events happening. June, possibly a prom, we're not sure. June 11th is our tentative date for a senior picnic at the Long Island Sports Park, hopefully. Again, these are just plans in place to see if we can do any of these things. And of course, a graduation. We want to also urge all students to please read their Gmails. They are missing important information from their teachers as well as fun events going on in the school and the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey. Ms. Mackey, what I want to ask is, when you have a special event, if you could possibly, any of the PTOs, send a flyer to the district office so it can be spread amongst us.
Sure.
There are things going on that none of us have. If you're not involved, I don't go to PTO meetings. So if we don't, that's the only way we hear it.
Sure.
So if you could do that, and this way, everyone's informed, and whatever they want to purchase or be involved with, they can.
Sure.
Okay,
could do
thank
that.
you so much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? We got no more questions, right? Anybody else on the board have anything to say? No. How about, you want to go home? Okay. Adjournment, could I have a motion, please? Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Virginia. Could I have, nobody has cares and concerns except to run. All in favor? Thank you. Everybody, you have a good night. Take care, be safe.
you.